Alright, so to get you ready for the midterm, there is a review. We're looking at it. And I'm going to break down the video of it into 3 parts because it is rather long. So part 1 will be on geometry. I'll have part 2 on sets and part 3 on logic. So let's get started. Number 1 says I have a line segment, DH, and I just want to mark that on here. So here starting at D and stopping at H. And I want to intersect that with line segment EG. Okay. Drawing on it really helps. That way you can see the intersection, which is the overlap. So it starts at E, it stops at H. So I'm looking at my choices, A, B, C, and D, and definitely I can see A and D both say EH. The key here is the symbol on top. This A is the answer because it's a line segment. The arrows on D says it keeps going. That's not what's happening. This is a start and a stop, which is why I pick A, which is a line segment. Number 2 says find the supplement of 31 degrees. So anytime I have a supplement, I'm thinking the 2 angles together add up to 180. So I'm going to subtract 31 from 180, which gives me 149. I'm 100% expecting you to have a calculator on the midterm, so I expect you to have a calculator as you're doing the review. It'll really help you out. So here's my answer. It's D. Number 3 is going to sound a little similar because once again I see the word supplement. I have angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary angles. What are the measures to the nearest hundredth of the 2 angles? So I have here 5x minus 14, and I also have x, and the supplementary part says that's 180. I'm going to add 5x to x, which is 6x, and I'm just going to bring this 14 to the other side, and that'll give me 194. So I'm going to divide 194 by 6, and it gives me x is 32.33. Okay, that's half of the question. That tells me this angle is 32.33. The other part, you have 2 choices. You could do 5 times 32.33 minus 14, or you could just say 180 minus 32.33, which gives me 147.67. All right, so I'm looking through my choices. Angle 1 is the 32.33, so I can see that looks like C and D, but with the 147.67, that looks like D. So important on the test, slow down, don't jump. It's easy to jump at a question when you see something familiar, but make sure you're answering everything. Okay. So 4 says find the complement. All right, so we did supplement earlier, now we're on complement, so complement has to do with 90 degrees. So now I'm saying 90 minus 54, which is 36, and I can see that is B. Number 5. 5 says classify the triangle as acute, right, or obtuse, and then as equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. So there's 2 kinds of measurements going on. One of them is about the type of angle, and the other one's about the sides relationships. Okay, definitely this little square here says this is a right triangle, and then none of the sides have any kind of lines to indicate that they're equal, which tells me it's scalene. So I have a right scalene. Number 6 says classify the angles as acute, right, obtuse, or straight. All right. So when I'm looking at it, acute would mean it's less than 90. That's not what's happening. Right would mean it's equal to 90. That's not what's happening. Obtuse is greater than 90. Absolutely. Straight would mean just that, a straight line. So this we can see is obtuse. All right, number 7. Then this one gets a little bit longer. So I want to pay attention to what's going on here. I'm trying to find this angle X. So this is on the outside. And I might draw this a little bit bigger just to help us out. Okay, this 75 means the exterior angle here is 75, which means because it's a vertical angle, this one in here is also 75. This angle is 139, which tells me to get this other angle beside it, I can do 180 minus 139, which gives me 41. Now I can see that 75 plus 41 is 116. So if I do 1/16, or I take 1/16 from 180, I get 64. Okay. So I have all these. I want this one right here. So I'm going to feel like I just did the same thing backwards. I'm going to do 180 minus 64, and it's going to give me 1/16. So there's my answer for that part, which I can then do 180 minus 1/16 is 64 here, or you could look at these two are vertical, which is why they're 64. So there's a bunch of different ways to get there. I know it's a lot of work. That's going to happen sometimes. You just have to pay attention to what do you know. Mostly this had together like a couple things. I used vertical angles to get the 75-75 to get the 64-64. I used a line has 180 degrees to get these, and I used a triangle has 180 degrees to get this one. So break down all the things and just keep writing. Don't expect things to always be a one answer, one and done. Sometimes you have to do a couple things to get there. This one's a little easier, number 8. I have a triangle, so I know it has 180 degrees. I already know two of the angles. I know B is 90. I know C is 39. So let me put that in my calculator. That's 129. So to get A, I'm going to do 180 minus 129, which gives me 51. Okay. Number 9, I want to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side. Okay. So this is a right triangle, so the reason we could use Pythagorean. And what Pythagorean says, if I take the two sides and square them, I'll get the square of the hypotenuse. 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. That's going to give me C squared. 9 and 16 is 25. So I'm going to take the square root and get 5. Right. And 10, important word here is similar. So it says the figures are similar. Find the length of the missing side indicated with X or Y. So I can see I have an X right here. All right, so it's important that we look at corresponding sides. So the 12 goes to the 8, the X goes to the 16. So I'm going to compare 12 over 8, and then I'm going to compare X over 16. So remember, when we do this, we have to keep proportions the same. So when I use big triangle over little, I want to do big triangle over little. And then we did cross multiplying. So I do 12 times 16 is 8x. Right, so on my calculator, 12 times 16 is 192. That's 8x. I'm going to divide by 8, and I got 24. So you can see that's A. All right, now the part you've probably been dreading, formulas. Formulas aren't as bad, and again, I'll try to put something up to talk about formulas. So let's go through these and see how we can do. So the first one says find area. It's important that you pay attention to. Am I asking area? Am I asking perimeter? Am I asking volume? Because that'll be important that you're doing the right thing. So this one says area. So with area, I want to do 1/2 the base, which is 44.5, times the height of 22. Okay, so I'm putting this in my calculator. So I have 1/2 times 44.5 times 22, and it gave me 489.5. It was in centimeters. Now it's centimeters squared because it's area. For 12, it says perimeter. Perimeter, you know, you're just adding up. So I'm going to add 5, 11, 5, and 11. The answer will be in miles because the question was in miles. So I did 511, 511. It gave me 32. Number 13, an area again. Okay, I always think area is multiplication, perimeter is addition. Maybe that will help too. So here, when I'm trying to find the area, I see two numbers. Let's multiply them. So I have 7 times 14 gives me 98. And because it's area, I know it's will be squared. Here's the weird one usually, is the trapezoid. So I have three numbers going on. I have the 6, I have the 12, that's the height, and the 30 on the bottom. So we are going to find the average of the 6 and the 30, and we're going to multiply it by the height of 12. Okay. So 6 and 30 is 36 times a half times 12. So I have a half times 36 times 12. When you're putting this in your calculator, I generally put in 0.5. You can put exactly 1 divided by 2, like 1 over 2. You don't have to hit a fancy fraction button for it to do anything. That's really not necessary. So you can just hit exactly as you think to put it. So here I put in a half of 36 times 12, and it gave me 216. We are still in area, so we want to say it is squared. So 216 and it's squared. All right. Number 15, we're getting a little fancy. It says shaded. So I have two things going on. I have an outside circle and then minus an inside circle. So I want to subtract the area of the two to get the answer. It says use pi is 3.14. So when I'm picking these problems, I do have a test generator that helps me out. So I'm picking from a bunch of problems it has. That way it can do multiple choice on the computer. So I'm stuck with whatever they have. So if they say use pi, then I need you to do what it says. Luckily, you can see the answers aren't that close together anyway. So if you were to happen to use the pi button on your calculator instead of 3.14, you should get the same answer. What is important here, though, is area is pi r squared. The picture gives diameter for each, so that 18 means this has 9 as the radius. This one as 6 says it has 3 as the radius. So I want to do pi times 9 squared minus pi times 3 squared. All right, and again, I'm going to use that 3.14 for pi. So I have 3.14 times 9 squared minus 3.14 times 3 squared. I got 226.08. You see where it says round to the nearest unit. And again, when you're looking, this is the only one that even looks like it should be the answer. So that was B. 16 says find the volume. Use 3.14 and round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so don't freak out that we have different shapes because they're all really, really similar. So now that this is a circle, it's pi r squared. The only difference is now the circle has some elevation and height to it, so we're going to multiply it by the h. So I have pi, my radius is 7.5, and I square it, and then times 20. All right. Once again, it says pi is 3.14, so I'm putting in my calculator 3.14 times 7.5 squared times 20. It gives me 3532.5. So when I'm looking, there's the first one. You can see the meters cubed because it's volume. I can write it in there if you want, but you can see it's not like they're close. 17. So we still have this circular shape. So I know there's a pi r squared in there. I see there's a height because it's a cone. So I have an h. Now clearly looking at 16 and 17, and you can see that relationship that they're both circular. They both have a height to them because we're looking at volume. But the difference is in the 16 it went straight up, and in 17 it goes to a point. So that point makes it a lot smaller. That's where the 1/3 comes in. So think the pyramid and the cone both have that 1/3 in there just to say they were smaller than if I had gone straight up. All right, so again, 3.14 for pi, so I'm putting in 1/3 pi. This time the radius is given, so it was 3. I'm going to square it, and then the height was 4. All of these are inches, so it'll be inches cubed at the end. So I have 1/3, 3.14, 3 squared, and then 4. I got 37.68, and this was inches cubed. All right, that I can see is the end of the part on geometry. Don't get too excited, because some people will be like, oh, if it wasn't on the review, you can't put it on the test. I didn't do the volume of everything because that would make the review too long. I didn't do the perimeter of everything because that would make the review too long. So these are examples of the kind of problems I would give. If you are having problems with the geometry, go back and do that quiz again where I threw more problems on. So think I'm going to throw something that has some kind of circular shape in there. There's probably going to be something with a triangle, right? I can't do everything. It's not that long of a test, but be prepared for any of them. Don't limit yourself to this. This is a guideline. This is a check. But try the other ones in case you need them, and I'll try to throw you guys something else to study as well.